to Upstage Downstage with him, Richard Platt, seated in the upper circle.
And him, Stephen Rees, typically seated in the cheap seat.
This is the Theatre Podcast, where we discuss productions we've seen,
Things we've liked,
and may not have liked,
giving our complete unprofessional
and non-biased opinions.
So grab a brew,
Take a seat,
and let's raise that curtain. On today's episode, we'll be discussing Bonnie and Clyde the Tour. We saw this production at Leicester Curve on the 24th of February 2024. Winner of Best New Musical at the What's on Stage Awards 2023, the West End smash hit Bonnie and Clyde is set to hold up theatres across the UK after two hell-raising seasons in London's West End. Featuring music by Frank Wildhorn, lyrics by Don Black, book by Ivan Mentrell, and directed and choreographed by Nick Winston. So Stephen, what's it all about?
Two small-town kids from the middle of nowhere became the biggest folk heroes in all America. They craved adventure and each other. Their names were Bonnie and Clyde. Fearless, shameless, and alluring, this award-winning production has garnered a mass following, much like the infamous pair themselves, and now they are set to take your city by storm. Discover the electrifying story of love, adventure, and crime that captured the attention of an entire nation.
But first, our post-show opinion!
This musical shoots straight to the top.
A show that's firing on all cylinders.
So with all that said, let's
Set the scene!
Right then, now we've cleansed our palates and waffled down all the biscuits, let's begin.
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 It's the prohibition. There's no gin.
No
have to hide
gin,
it.
No gin allowed. Is that for coffee as well?
Yeah, it's for coffee. There's no gin in that.
Oh. Right, let's get to it. Previously, we have already talked about Bonnie and Clyde.
Well, shall we say I've already talked about Bonnie and Clyde?
I interjected quite a bit.
Yeah,
So yes, I asked no probing questions. I
You probed, but you didn't use your eyes.
I probed deep. Hey! Okay, so we can now compare, can't we? Go compare.
Sometimes it's better to compare, sometimes it isn't.
Probably best for me not to compare anyway. I could compare this, couldn't I? I could compare that.
Compare the meerkat.
Oh dear. We're waffling now. Right, so... Oh, is that my microphone you're twiddling? Oh, it's yours, is it?
It is mine.
Are you turning it up?
Yeah, just a little touch.
Oh, yes, because we've all got to listen
Just
to you.
keep up with yourself.
Project.
Oh, darling, I projected
Project.
for years.
From the cheap seats.
The screen just isn't big enough.
Right, okay, so third attempt now. Let's try and get in here. You've previously seen this, and
Yes.
one of the comments I asked you about the staging was, when you first saw it, because you said it was in a small theatre,
Yep.
I said, would it transfer well to a bigger theatre? Well, we saw this at the Leicester Curve.
Yep.
So, have they changed the set to how you originally saw it? Have they made it bigger?
They've not made the set bigger, but they've made the framing around it bigger. Because actually what...
I thought you were going to say they made the acting bigger.
The actors were bigger. No, they didn't all put a few pounds on and, become bigger to fill the stage. That's not how they did it. No, they increased the framing of the main stage. So when I saw it in London, it was in a very small theatre, so you literally only saw where I suppose we've not really explained what you see when you walk in.
Well, we have on the other episode,
version.
but yeah, what we can say from that is you mentioned that it was concrete.
Yes.
Didn't you? And I can now see what you were talking about now, because
exactly.
I get it. It was very much like concrete and plaster-based.
It's
as
got
in
the
some
feel
kind
of like
warehouse.
being in a warehouse, really. And I think that they did well recreating that for a larger stage. I still drawing you into that smaller space, because the theatre I saw it in was very much it felt like you were almost in the barn with them, because above, one thing we couldn't see on the pictures that where we were sat in the seats this time is you couldn't see that above there was actually slatted wood at the top part of the stage that had light coming through it, even when we were sat waiting for it to start. So
Yeah, because we were high up, weren't we?
Yeah. So
we were looking down at the
we
stage, really.
Yeah, but they'd still got that, because I did see when I was lower down, just had a quick glance, and they had got the same staging really as the one in London. So
yes, and to each side, I think you mentioned a record player and some shelving on the left.
Yeah, it's just it's like there's a writing desk in there. I think it's a little writing desk with a mirror, and then a shelving unit
with some drinks and stuff as well. I think
it's just to bring you into the space really.
And a deer's skull, roadkill or something. Not roadkill.
Yeah, it's like it's a stag, isn't it? With the it's a stag with the head with the antlers.
So what is it?
It's a stag with antlers.
Might just edit that in instead.
A stag with antlers.
And what we're faced straight away is the American flag, which then that pulls up, and I remember it being like the warehouse, the back of the warehouse, like door. So it's like a wood effect. Oh no, it was glass one. No, because there was a bullet. I remember a bullet.
Yeah,
with
so
smoke coming through it.
If you look around the stage as well, there's bullet holes all the way around the concrete as well on the
but was it a glass with the smoke coming through, or was it? Am I right in thinking it was the wooden barns with a bullet hole through?
It was wooden barn doors, the big wooden.
Yeah, but with the smoke coming through it.
Yeah,
it
was.
So that's what it was.
That's what it was.
It was it?
It was.
So if you haven't already done so, you can hear Richard's first review on episode 18 of the podcast.
Wow, that was a while ago.
It was, wasn't it? And you can hear me ask some really dumb questions.
I think you did well, considering.
Well, I had no idea, really.
You've never seen it.
No, I didn't know what to say to instigate the conversation, to keep it flowing.
So yeah, as I say, you can see the fact that the edges of the stage have been enhanced from that. Not much different.
No, as you say, it was definitely, for the tour, it was larger. Definitely larger.
Yeah, they just expanded it to fill the space, because actually the Leicester Curve Theatre's actually got quite a big stage area. You know,
it's massive.
It's huge, and you can lose any show on that if you're not careful, if you don't do it right. So so it does warrant. It did make
full scale.
It did make me wonder if they've created this show that tours so that they can actually adjust those side walls. If they don't need them, they don't need them, but they can bring them in and take them out as they need to, really.
Possibly. And in the original episode 18, I asked you if they had a full car or a half car.
Yeah.
And did we get a full car in this time? In this one?
No, it was a half car.
No, they didn't splash out, did they, on the full one?
No, I think I can see why, because it's only used briefly, really. It's not used for the whole production, is it? So, and I suppose really, what I suppose we didn't say is that the flag was actually projected. There was a few projections used in this for the backdrops. There wasn't actually there was no physical scenery apart from as in there was no scenery changes, as in the backdrops were all projections. There were the elements of using walls or using the barn doors that came in and out that just changed the space.
And they had the tabs that moved around, didn't they? So people walking on and off and whatever.
But it was actually quite an empty stage, really, for saying, they did quite a lot on it.
Now, we've already, in the other one, discussed like the direction of it and stuff. So I don't suppose there's much point in going over that. However, what we could do is discuss how you felt this was different to the other one.
Yeah.
Because this is the first time I saw it, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I did feel it was slightly slow to begin with, because I wasn't quite sure. I mean, I knew the story, but I wasn't quite sure when it would start picking up pace, or when I would become invested in these characters to care.
Yeah, and it's quite a subtle start to this production. It doesn't really.
It starts with a bang, doesn't it?
It does start with a
You
bang.
hear the gunshots.
You do, yeah, definitely. But I think when it starts with such a sudden bang, where you have the glass smashing on the screen and stuff like that, you think that it's going to be like that from the get-go, but actually what it does is it takes you right back to the beginning.
It resets.
It resets, and that means you're learning the entire storyline. You're not just straight in at the action. So
Yeah.
it is a bit of a slow burn at the start.
I think it was there for dramatic effect to get your attention.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good
to remind you this is the ending.
I do sometimes like the way they do that to draw attention when some productions very much warn you that this production's going to start now, this, that, and the other.
Mm-hmm.
That was just like smack, off we go. We started.
Yeah.
So that sometimes helps a lot. But comparatively, it was as strong as the original production, because I kind of liked this production because even the original, even though some of the people that perform in it are now names, they weren't when I saw it. Mm-hmm. It's a production that's almost springboarded some people that were maybe not seen in the West End. It's actually gave them a chance to shine in their own right. So that's similar to this production on the tour. Not everybody's very well known. I mean, yes, there's some known names in there, but you wouldn't think they're performing this in the sense of it feels authentic. Every cast member feels authentic. They don't just feel like they're putting a name in to sell tickets, because it sell tickets based on based on what it is, really.
Yeah.
A little bit like Ocean at the End of the Lane. There was names in there, but you didn't. You go and see it for what it is rather than the sort of cast.
Yeah, I completely forgot about who was actually starring in that one. Like this one as well. It wasn't until we sat down to do this podcast that I remembered.
Yeah.
Oh yes, of course, Catherine Tildesley is in it.
Exactly, and I think
I
that,
didn't even remember what. I love the character she played.
Yeah, exactly.
But I didn't realise it was her, which I'm slightly annoyed at.
And for me, that's when a musical or a production comes into its own, when you don't think about who's in it. They are the characters, and I think that's important for something like this, really, because it is a little bit. It's a bit jarring to get used to, because it's a production that nobody's familiar with the musical unless you've seen it. It's not had a lot of coverage.
But everyone's familiar with the story in
yes,
itself.
Exactly.
So that sells.
Yeah, of course it does.
The wanting to come and see it anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. In terms of the writing of it, as we said, it was a very much a slow build. So it goes back to the beginning, and we see both Bonnie and Clyde, how they started out. One was being, Clyde and his brother were robbing stores, and Bonnie
quite low level sort of felony and stuff like that, but they weren't.
Yeah, it was very much true to the actual story of it.
Yeah, So I know you've done some look into it.
Yeah, and I mean, there was a lot of other characters at the time that were more well known as well.
Yeah,
and notorious gangsters and mobs and
I
villains
suppose
and whatever.
Time in America, it was very much the whole of America was almost, the floor was shaking a lot with a lot of crime and a lot of things happening in that time period, weren't they? So
Yes, and what's important to note is Bonnie herself was very much influenced by Hollywood.
Yeah,
and the actors and the empowerment of the actresses.
Yes,
and she felt like she wanted her own little movie, or to be well known.
She wanted to be remembered. She wanted to be the star of the,
She did, and that's possibly why she liked writing as well, because she wanted to be published.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting because in a day and age where social media and stardom can appear in 5 minutes, this is somebody so long ago that documented everything she did for her story to live on almost, and that's outlived her.
Yes.
but through her writing. So it's, it's actually, yes, it might have taken a longer time, but her social media was her writing to actually tell that tale of truth of what happened. And it's people might make viral videos or YouTube videos or things where they cover what they've done. She was doing it all that many years ago, so it's quite interesting to look at it from that perspective sometimes.
And also it's accidental but indicative of how she wanted to be seen, I think.
Yeah.
Because of when they were just messing about with the cameras and taking pictures, and there's a famous one of her poised with the gun up against Clyde, and there's quite a few of them.
Yeah.
But that was only because it was discovered when they had to do a quick getaway out of a building.
Yeah, exactly.
And
I suppose
but for them to use it in the local papers as well, that made it more sensationalist within the media, and for them to then have their names known out there and to be up there with the others, the other criminals and stuff, which have had huge notoriety at that time.
Yeah, and I think when you look at what was actually happening around the time in the 30s when all this was happening, the late 20s, you've got silent movies, you've got movies stepping from silent movies to talky movies and stuff like that, where all of a sudden stardom and fame became not just what was seen on a stage. It wasn't just that you'd seen that person on a stage, you'd actually thrust into a world that was seen. So it was her chance of being part of that, and their chance of being seen as unforgettable almost, that somebody would make a film out of them. How is somebody going to make a film if we don't tell our story? And it's
and also coming off the back of the First World War, both of them were very much deprived and poor.
Yeah, the Great Depression was fully set in, wasn't it?
So it was out of desperation, really, that their lives met.
Yeah,
really. And it probably is one of the greatest love stories told, really.
It is, because they just went hell for leather and went for it. Yes, their love was doing bad things, but actually, it does show so much about what happens in that time and what people are pushed to almost to grab fame. Well,
they didn't want to be forgotten at all,
No,
did they? They didn't
no.
want to be forgotten.
No.
And they just wanted to be known and wanted to, I don't know, I suppose we all want to.
I suppose as well, if you're mixing with other mobs or gangs or high-powered criminals, it rubs off. You get to that point where
Did you say he rubs off?
I think that's where your mind was going, Stephen.
That's what I heard. We never know with you.
I think, I think it must have had an influence. It must have created them to go, well, we can make a name for ourselves as well. Nothing's stopping us. Who creates the name unless you create it? I think that's the thing, isn't it? Sometimes it's like, it's almost the branding of Bonnie and Clyde. It's it's like a business.
But why not Clyde and Bonnie?
Well, exactly. Well, you never see. It could be. It just doesn't have the same ring. It used to be Bonnie and Clyde.
No.
But I think that's actually what made it stronger. Maybe in that time, that it was a strong female putting her name forward as being a lead in that duo, really, to stand out, because they would stand out, because it would be very male dominated world. So it's quite an interesting look, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say it was very much true to the real life events as well. For obvious reasons, I think there was a couple of things left out, which would be some of the secondary raids or the multiple things going on. I think they might have even just been glanced over to quicken it up so we don't get repetitive. But we got the idea, and it was very much you got the story behind both of them. Yeah. And I think for me, with them having that reset to get to know them,
Yeah.
you know, you needed that, because whether you were familiar with these people or not, watching it from the stage, you can't just assume that they're horrible people from the get-go.
No, of
you
course
need
not.
to understand their love for each other
Yeah.
and what their purpose is, so you can get to know them, just as everyone did in real life.
Yeah, exactly.
There's like an obsession with like people who do wrong. For example, Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah.
I'm going off on a tangent here, but everyone knows that name, or Rose West.
Yeah, exactly.
You never really know the victims as such.
No, you always know the perpetrator, the person.
Exactly, because it fascinates everybody.
Because getting behind the mind of that person is the fascinating part, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, and why did they do it?
Why
and how?
the motives and all those, you know.
Yeah.
It's like the Huntleys, and it's like Huntley and Huntley. It's all those things, you know. You know, it's like with Ian Huntley. I'll never forget the vision of the press purposefully filming him, almost like they've been tipped off, knowing he's going to crack, because they were recording it for later use. It was, but it's actually afterwards. It's quite a chilling image when you know that was done for a you can tell it was done for a reason, to put pressure on that situation. And I think it's very similar with, you know, this is, you know, way back when, but they almost put pressure on themselves to be in that public eye, to go out with a bang. It was like they knew they were going to go out with a bang.
But what sells papers?
Exactly.
You know, having the images, having them being talked about, and making them like
it's like it's almost like the penny dreadful of its day. It's what's happening then again with what are they doing this week? You know, it's just like,
incidentally, it was very much all about the crimes, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like the crime stories and the whodunits and all that kind of things back in the day. A lot of people were fascinated with the crime stories, especially like the early.
And I think with
crimes.
with the speed of the media being a lot slower in those days, people were waiting on the edge of their seat for a radio program or a newspaper article, because they didn't have it at the end of a phone. They didn't have it on a screen to look at. They were waiting for the newspaper the next day to go and buy it. It was the people did queue up for the papers to read the next exciting story. So if they'd got some people that, in some ways, it makes you wonder, in the Great Depression it was, people actually idolised them a little bit, because they were going against everything and doing what they wanted. And, you know, it might have actually, who knows, inspired others to do something similar, but also just give them some focus from this world that they're just living without things. So it's, you know, because it probably read too good to be true a little bit, you know, when it was being written in the papers, even though it was the truth. It does make you wonder.
Well, it was very interesting to see this script make a comment of, like I said earlier, who's it going to be called? Is it Clyde and Bonnie, or Bonnie and Clyde?
Yeah.
Because I think by playing around with that and bringing that out, you do get the power dynamics of the relationship, and who's actually not necessarily behind it, but they were both equal.
Yes, and there was a narrative between them. Rather, it was a conversation and a constant review of how they were doing something, and you could see that would have been how they did it. They wouldn't just go home and go, well, we'll just go and mindlessly do something again. There's always actually more calculation about it.
Well, at that time, they knew that they were becoming talked about.
Yeah, exactly.
So it would have been, how are we going to be talked about? How are we going to be seen together?
Yeah, even if they went and robbed banks, but they didn't actually commit crimes in the sense of they didn't kill anybody. But but what I'm saying is they lavished in the fact that all these people that were carrying around them actually were almost celebrating the fact that they'd had a heist and they've seen them. Or, you know, because it's that celebrity
is something to do.
It is.
He started off by robbing cars because they were quite easy to take.
Yeah.
You know, and if people have got something and you don't have anything, you know,
because it's like the death of the policeman. It's almost like they portray that quite accidental, as in it's not something they do all the time. In this musical, I don't know if I don't know if you've looked into that, but
I think they do it in the play. That's quite true to life. Like, they build it up in stages.
Yeah.
You know, It was like the first death really was like the incident in the stage script.
Yeah.
For it to be like, oh, we've got to keep going.
Yeah, exactly.
And I say that in terms of like
the
playwriting thing. But obviously, like in Thelma and Louise, once they've killed someone, that's it. There's no turning back.
Yeah, they've already unraveling already.
In real life, it excited them.
Yeah.
So they knew if they can get away with one,
yeah,
then they're untouchable, because then, it doesn't matter about the second one because they've already done the first.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So then,
it's the great unraveling.
As it keeps going, more and more, like
basically
just
the
got
chase.
in the way.
It's almost like the chase is on now.
Yeah.
It's the thrill of the waiting to be finally caught or meet their end, but they're going to make a good go of it before they they leave the world.
It was interesting to see. There's in this production, there's two scenes that are very similar but reversed. One is when she's writing her poetry and he's trying to sing.
Yeah.
And then in the second act, she's trying to do something and he's reciting poetry, or he's reading it to her.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember what you mean.
What was she doing? Was she... Because he was...
I think the whole point was to...
No, but like, what was she doing at that point? Was she in the bath? Or...
No, they only used the bath once.
And he was in that?
Yeah.
So what was she doing in the second act when he was reciting?
Wasn't she packing? Because they were getting ready to go.
I don't know, but was he doing the mandolin or something at one point?
He was playing in the bath. That's it. So
Excuse me.
Playing in the bath.
But anyway, I can't remember now.
No.
But it was quite nice to see the repeat there, because this is a story about love. It's about the power between them both.
Yeah.
And what one person cares about the writing and the other is not interested. It seems switches over, and then when we do see the fact that he is actually interested in what she writes, but she's sort of like moved on from the writing aspect to being sort of the gangster, and which again in turn moves the story along, because we've both seen the journey now of both of them.
Yeah, exactly.
And how they've changed.
No, I think it's also interesting that we talk about them, well, sensationalise them, but actually it's a bit like the final poem that Bonnie wrote before she was killed. It was a poem that was written to almost be the love note to the world, to almost say this is who we are.
Yeah.
And our legend will live on. And it's like, and it has. You think about it, we're now 100 years on, nearly a full 100 years, and before they were killed, and it's like they're still being talked about. People still know who they are, and it's quite yes, they're not wrong.
Another pointer to add, what I didn't realise was that the brother Buck and his wife Blanche were also in on it as well. For a large part, maybe not Blanche. She was just like an innocent bystander trying to do right. But, throughout all of it, even watching like the documentaries about them, how they travelled as a bit of a gang, which is also quite interesting to note that even though it's sort of a love story between them both and how much they were both intertwined, and they were on the run, they were very much passionate about their families and keeping their families close.
Exactly.
Because they kept visiting the mother.
Yeah. And
and the families and stuff.
And it's like, I don't know if you noticed in the second act the gesture to it was
the priest or the policeman?
No, it was to Clyde's dad. When Clyde returned back to his mum and dad's house, and Clyde just handed his dad a package when his mum gone in the house.
Yeah.
It was a pack of money that was just like, I'll see you right, this will keep you going.
Yes.
And it was like no questions asked. It was like, even though they probably didn't agree with it, they knew that they were looking after him in a time when money was scarce. They needed to be they got nothing to live on. They needed, needs must, and I think it was like it almost
Well,
like was a network of people that just
helped them,
but also they helped them survive as well.
Yes.
Equally.
Well, you saw the human factor.
Yeah.
Even though these people were going around killing like the officers and couldn't give a damn, so long as they got what they wanted, it was a way of them fighting against the system.
It was,
but they still had heart. They had the family, and they loved their family.
It was almost a Robin Hood and Maid Marian situation, really.
It sort of was, but in a selfish way.
In a very close knit, selfish way to their own, family and closest, really.
And it was quite poignant when Bonnie gave her sort of a last goodbye. I think the family knew, the mother knew that she wouldn't be coming back.
Yeah,
she
exactly.
knew that
this was it.
The time's up now. You're going to get caught, or you're going to get killed.
I think like you say, their fate was sealed when they made the first killing. Almost that they knew that the time bomb was ticking. Really, from that point, whatever happened after that, something was coming.
And also, it was interesting to note that it was one of the first V8 engines as well. One of the cars that he stole to make them faster than the police was the new V8 engine that came out, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly.
Look at you getting all mechanic.
I know. Now, we've talked a little bit about, the whole show, really. Should we talk about the music, the actual songs?
Yeah.
When I first viewed this, I mean, you've obviously seen it before. Again, it was a slow burn. I wasn't quite sure when I was going to get interested sort of like, when I say get interested, I mean, when are the characters going to make me want to get to know them or take notice? It began with Blanche's song when they're all in the salon.
Yeah.
And I think it was You're Going Back to Jail.
Yeah.
With Buck. And I think that was the first song out of it where I actually quite got into it. I thought,
of course.
This is a good song here. I quite like the dynamic here. I wasn't sure if she was going to be a big player at this point. I wasn't quite sure where this song sat in the whole show. I didn't know who Blanche was, essentially. I thought it was basically about Bonnie and Clyde, and then we're just going to see a little bit of the brother, and then it's going to go.
Yeah.
His story will finish, and then that'll be it. But no, it was interesting to see that that open up that character and me to then start liking that dynamic as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think as well for a relatively, it's not a big cast, it's big enough. And the play itself, well, we keep saying play musical. It's a play with music. It's not really a musical in the standard form. It's actually the songs elevate the actual action that happens. I think really it's Raise a Little Hell is the sort of turning point. Really, that's the song that you start seeing red. Really, that's where where it's almost Clyde's tipping point.
Is that the one with Buck and the wheel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one where he starts killing. In jail.
Yeah.
It's almost like the script feels like it's got music attached to it, rather than each song being completely identifiable as an individual song. And I think it's more of it's like a meander along the production, rather than the actual music stands out that like, I want to sing that song, or I want to sing that. Everything feels like us. It almost ties in with Bonnie's poetic side, where it's almost like the whole production.
I agree.
It's almost like the whole production's a poetic.
I didn't feel like the songs were there to deliver a plot device, or to move the plot along, or to explain something away, like give an exposition to this. It was very much an addition of how they were feeling, so it was very emotive. In a lot of
it fueled the scene rather than stood out as something just on its own. It was part of that. It just heightened the mood at certain points as well.
Yeah.
A little bit similar to Blood Brothers. It's very similar in that without the narration, but it's like some of the songs almost just enhance the emotion a little bit more.
Yes, I agree there, because you could take all the music out and it will still make a strong drama.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, retelling. Yeah, which helps because I think that just it sums up what I say about the songs weren't necessarily like a plot point.
No.
Because you need to know your plot points as to where you're going to move it. Because they never did that, you can easily take them out.
And I think a lot of the plot points in this were more the visuals as well. It was more about what was happening at what point on stage to know where you were in their journey almost. You know, the things that they went through and the misdemeanors they got up to, those were your plot points of the changes in their life, really, of how it all progressed.
Exactly how, like when he was in prison and he got sodomized, and her trying to get him to escape,
but also
or helping him try to escape.
But it also felt like you were seeing her build up to smuggle things into the prison, but it wasn't like the first scene she got it in. You felt like she was building up a relationship with the guards to eventually get stuff in there and use it as a way to get in there.
Well, incidentally, that's the choice she had. In that she could have just walked away.
Yeah, of course she could. She could have got away scot-free, basically.
Exactly, but she chose to stay, so that was the turning point for her downfall.
Yeah.
But of her forthcoming life and
it was the Romeo and Juliet moment.
Yeah,
it was like she it's the Juliet moment of waking up, seeing your partner's journey already decided, and you could either take the poison or go.
Yeah.
And she took the poison. It's the same sort of situation, isn't it? It's like it's got those classic elements in it.
Yeah, and it's quite strange in a way because this is real life.
Yeah.
But yet it fits so easy into narrative, a story.
It really does.
With all the plot twists and the people's choices and decisions that they make and how everything goes wrong. So it's
what's the better to the end of a story than an ultimate end? I mean,
exactly.
It's not like there was no dying old in a care home. They were shot in a vehicle that was the vehicle they used to get away from everybody. And it's like, you couldn't write it really. It all happened.
Well, the thing is, you say that, but mind you, people got history to look back on. Like Thelma and Louise, the best ending
exactly
there is to just keep driving.
Yeah.
What do you face?
Exactly.
I quite like that ending for that. But anyway, we're not here to talk about Thelma and Louise. It's Bonnie and Clyde today.
Well, they certainly went out with a bang, didn't they? Let's face it.
Hey, do you reckon if they did Thelma and Louise, like the musical on stage, they'll put like a car on one of them crane things like they do on pantomime?
Yeah, that'd be good. And they could just drive off into the audience.
Straight into the audience. Yeah, I'm sure that'll happen.
A little bit weird hanging there in the darkness.
Yeah. But anyway, coming back to Bonnie and Clyde.
I enjoyed it the second time round.
You did you?
Yeah. For saying I'd already seen it. It was different seeing it in a larger space. I did like it in the more sort of focused.
Do you feel it had more air to, like the scenes had more
air to breathe?
Air to breathe, yeah, more distance. And I know it sounds a bit stupid saying that, but in a small theatre, whenever you're like viewing something, it can be very intimate and a bit too much or overwhelming. Do you feel like when you saw it the second time in the bigger space, that actually allowed you
I think
time
it's a bit
to
of
evolve
both, yeah. I think it's interesting seeing it in both ways because I think sometimes when it's more intimate, wherever you sit, you almost feel immersed. Whereas you feel like you're in a theatre with this type of production because it did feel like you were in the barn in the other space because you were literally in a small venue, almost very close to the front. Wherever you sat, you felt in it. So it was different for me, but like you say, it was good to see it breathe on a bigger space. There's a couple of things I'd have probably. I think one thing that that I could have picked up on was it's very slight, but in the church scenes where we were sat, the cross could have been lowered to the floor so everybody could have seen it.
Yeah.
Because that pillar of light you saw at the back of stage was actually a cross to show that they were in the church. And the fact that it was too high, I think probably the top 8 rows wouldn't have seen the cross on the actual church, which just did take away a little bit from the actual aesthetics of because this scenery he didn't have much to reference to. When it went into that scene, it would have helped just enhance it a little bit more if they'd have just thought about the top of the house, really.
One thing I noticed on this production is they had a fixed desk. Well, I say desk, it was very much a makeup drawer desk type thing on one side, and then they had the drinks cabinet on the other. Whenever they moved scenes or in different barns or whatever, because they moved around a lot, I did notice that Bonnie did keep going to the desk to put makeup on there, but she was in a different location.
Yeah.
So that was a bit jarring for me, wondering where are they meant to be? Because if they're on the run, and I know this whole, in retrospect, I know that they go back to certain things, but it didn't seem right that they were in...
They won't go back that many times, you know.
Yeah, and wherever they were, it did seem to be the same thing.
Yeah, and I think
being used.
It almost felt a little bit like a prop store, the cupboard under the writing desk, rather than it actually being a different space or different room. And I almost feel maybe if they'd have had those items that would have come out on wheels to actually use them in different scenes, it would have been better. So you had different ones for different spaces. That would have enhanced it.
Things come on, like the bath came on,
yeah,
and then
exactly,
they had another. Was it an office chair or an office desk came in?
Yeah, I mean
there was that sex scene on there.
Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't on the dresser.
What could have looked better is some flush doors or some wooden square doors or something at the lower level of that staging to hide things in. And have different boxes, or even like we've seen before, where they have a bit of a trapdoor where they'd hide a gun in, or just something that's different for each scene rather than it all coming from the same unit. I totally understand that,
Yeah,
because it felt a little bit too
to know whereabouts
staged.
they were.
Yeah,
because they moved about. It would have been ideal not having to use the same furniture.
Because it's like when they were in the salon, they used the same furniture. They used the stuff on those two items, those two pieces of furniture, in the salon as well as in the house, as well as in the. And even though it's two different, it should be two different spaces. So, yeah, I don't understand I could probably understand that because they used fixed set, they wanted it to they thought they could just double up and use that again. But I do think it was a misstep in the sense of if you bring in a lot of stuff on for the salon, why don't you just bring something on with a unit attached to it that's part of that and just use that as part of the staging? I think it would have worked better.
Moving on to our next segment, as we say, we're here for the drama. Do you know what? For saying that this is a musical,
yep,
I thought it was well acted for a dramatic piece.
So do I, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
I don't know if I've explained my mental state here.
I think for me, it's the subtlety of characterisation, but all the cast on stage made you feel like you'd gone back to the 20s.
Yes.
I didn't feel like there was anybody that was out of place, or every scene had that element of, yes, you were relying quite heavily on projections and things to enhance the production, but the actual cast on stage, you felt like you'd gone back to that time period.
It was extremely authentic.
It felt like
the performances were definitely like believable.
I felt like I was in the mix of a silent movie and a talkie being projected on stage. I didn't feel like I felt like we were almost watching a black and white film that somebody was hand cranking the wheel a little bit, to project the image. I think it felt authentic in that way as well, Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know where you were going with the black and white thing.
No, I think what I mean is it's that I felt like there was the elements of, when you see silent movies where they're showing up the signs and there's the drama bits and there's those sort of things, and then I felt like the way they'd structured the production felt quite definite, and felt like they'd structured it like you'd structure a movie scene by scene and cut all the stuff that wasn't iconic, really. I think that's what I'm trying to get at. It was each...
See, what I was trying to get at was the fact that even the musical numbers didn't feel like musical numbers.
No.
Like all jazz hands,
there was
toe tapping. There was. It did. I don't recall it ever being anything like that.
No.
It was very much genuine and within the scene, being the scene.
Yeah.
You know, when people are like when the actors are acting and they sort of you know, when they're performing as a character, saying the lines, but then when it goes into a musical number, something elevates within them.
Yeah, exactly.
And they start being a little bit extra.
Yeah,
shall we say? I never got any of that.
And I think that was through also not. They didn't perform to an audience. They performed the production, but none of it was ever really aimed at us.
No,
and I think that was the key thing as well to add to
notably in the salon as well.
Yeah,
they
exactly.
were definitely singing to each other.
Yeah,
but in such like a nonchalant sort of like a nothing way.
Yeah, and none of it, and I suppose as well, none of it was waiting for applause, or none of it was waiting for a bow, or there was no at the end of each song, there was no like standout moment of we'll end up in a tableau of people for people to applaud us. It's like we'll move on to the next thing. We're keeping going. We've got more to come. And I think it was, and it meanders all the way through a little bit. It's a little bit like
I think the word I'm looking for is grounded.
Yeah,
it was a grounded musical.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's what. I think that's the word I might have to use for this. Yeah.
And I think as well the music evokes that era as well. Nothing felt out of date, as in it felt within its time period rather than.
You mean there was no electronic synthesizers?
Yeah, well, I think it's very hard when you know that there's a lot of people that interpret certain time periods and they write songs that yes they're good, but they've got nothing to do with the time period or the poetry involved or the musical styles
or
of
the
that
language.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this felt authentic to that.
Yes, it does very much remind me of the like you say, the Blood Brothers, because I can't remember any of the songs apart from a couple standout ones. I think I had this issue with Heathers as well. Yeah.
But it's like Blood Brothers. Blood Brothers. It's like blood, right? Blood
Brothers.
It's the knack of repeating the score again, but it goes to another type. The song sort of, it's like Raise Another Hell. It's like what was it? Raise a Little Hell. The reprise. There's actually in the second half. There's quite a lot of reprises in the second half. So there's an element of repeating but moving on. So they use the same score, but they actually take it again to another bit, and it's like that's similar to Blood Brothers and Marilyn Monroe. It's that scene that it's
Marilyn
like
Monroe?
it goes because it goes from her. What's
Marilyn Monroe got to do with Blood Brothers?
It was Marilyn Monroe's in it. As in where Mickey loses his mind, like Marilyn Monroe towards the end, but at the start, Marilyn Monroe, they're dancing like Marilyn Monroe at the start in a happy jolly way, and it's actually used the score to actually take it downhill to like when the drug use was there. So it's like it's using the same score to do something different with it later on, and that's a similar way that this did it, where it's quite subtle, but you realise actually they've just twisted it and tweaked it, and we're going somewhere else with it now.
I completely forgot about that song about Marilyn Monroe and Blood Brothers. Yeah, I keep all remember of that one. Tell me it's not true.
Tell me
it's not true. Now then, we're still on the acting, aren't we?
Yeah.
Would you like to give a shout out?
Do you want to give a shout out?
I would like to give a shout out to the following people.
Item 1.
Item 1 on the agenda. Let's be honest here. I think this production is very much a 4-piece.
Yeah, it is.
My
it
mind.
Really is. Yeah, it really is.
So Clyde, Bonnie, Blanche and Buck were definitely the ones that it was about. So a shout out to Alex James Hatton as Clyde.
Yeah.
He gave a really strong performance.
He really
It was
did.
completely believable.
Yeah.
You know,
He was in the zone. You could see that he was Clyde, you know.
yeah, definitely going through all that emotion, even the bits in prison and things that have happened to him. You know, there was such a range there.
Yeah, totally.
You know, and how he played well opposite Kate Tonkinson.
Yeah, totally.
As Bonnie. I mean, there was that sex scene. What really sort of like it shook me. It shook me.
I kept
I was
quiet
not
on purpose.
expecting that, but they must have been so professional and so like
he's being committed to the actual
being relaxed with
it.
each other
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah.
And Katie was just really incredible as bringing Bonnie to life.
Yeah, exactly.
Throughout the whole, you know,
it was almost that
production of it.
sultry sexiness of her to be as strong as he was.
To be fair,
I think that was the thing.
She was far too attractive than the actual real
yeah, she was.
Bonnie, to be fair.
Yeah. And but I think that's the thing. Is, you know, what the two main characters, your Bonnie and Clyde, are they're competing with each other, but they're also competing against the world. So they're both equally as strong as each other. You know, and I think that
she definitely gave it, especially near the latter half.
Yeah.
Say like Act 2.
Yeah.
She came into her own when the character twisted slightly to be more bitter. Do I mean bitter? No, more gnarly, especially against
more gnarly.
Blanche.
Yeah,
and you know that dynamic there.
Not just gnarly, but more capable of achieving the same level as Clyde. You know, there was no like.
Yeah, but I wouldn't even call it like desperation to be like.
No.
It was like very much she had it.
Yeah, exactly.
She got it. She knew it.
Yeah.
But there was that cut-off thing of, oh, well, she could reach for that gun and know how to use it without even a second thought.
I think for me it was the scene when they take over the bank and everybody's kneeling down, everybody's got their hands on their heads and all that, and they're just laughing with each other. And I think that's the scene that you just see the switch between, well, we'll just enjoy this. It's a bit of fun, you know, but actually we're so in control of it, but it's also a bit of fun. And
but also, it's the excitement.
Yeah, exactly.
Of if any of them are going to like twist and turn and break, you know, and just do something completely, just blow someone's head off, basically.
Definitely. Yeah,
exactly.
you know that they're on the edge of just pulling the trigger.
Yeah, they knew.
And they do it, they're not bothered, and they just walk out the door. You know, I think that's what you felt, and that to portray that on stage, they're doing that. It's not the set and scenery around them. They were pulling that off. They were giving you that performance level, and that's when it was, you know, that's when it's captivating as to they've just nailed the characters right, you know. And I think that's you know.
And I'd also like to give a shout out to Catherine Tildesley.
Yep,
I've always liked her in a lot of things she's done. I first saw her in a BBC show in 2007. I think it was called Lilies.
Yeah,
I think it was 2007. I think it was. It was wonderful in that. But again, her performance and her vocals and just how she performed, I didn't even notice it was her either.
No,
you know, but she gave such a great supporting role to the Bonnie and Clyde. When I say supporting, I don't mean she was like a supporting act. I mean, she lived up to that character of being the one that was completely shocked and outraged and just bewildered by everything that they were doing, and was trying to get them, well, all three of them really, to seek a life of goodness.
Yeah, and I think not just that, she showed that it was the intrigue as well of being part of it a little. There was still something underneath that was, although she was seeing the reality and the, you know, she realised she's almost part of it, so she was going along with it at certain points. And
well, I think that just shows the fact that it was about two couples really, and the fact that both of them did what they did and what they needed to do for love.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, Blanche just went along with it out of the love for Buck, you know, whereas Bonnie went along with it because it excited her.
Yeah,
she wanted more. But it was nice to get that dynamic, even though this is real life.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you still got to see that storyline unfold as well. And I thought Sam Faraday's book was just...
Yeah, it was brilliant.
He was brilliant. And he worked so well with Clyde, with Alex.
I was just going to say he died really well. because he did
an amazing death.
Well, I mean, that's another thing. It felt real. That's the thing.
Well, the poignant thing was seeing Catherine as Blanche be so innocent in Act 2 when it was all, shots were being... all guns were being shot and stuff.
Yeah.
And they were under fire. And the fact that she tried so hard to get them to just stop doing all this.
Yeah.
And then she gets bamboozled by all these officers and get taken away and like in real life and stuff and made to face jail time and stuff. But you do feel really, really sorry for her.
Yeah. You feel like she's been caught up in the whole... She's taken along with it without choice, really. And she's had to almost accept what she's part of,
Yeah, which does happen in life as well. You're part of the family. You're trying to convince people to do good, but then you also succumb to the same fate just because you didn't dob them in as well.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to shout out the rest of the cast. I mean, the ensemble cast were brilliant. I mean, they all played every part equally strong. I think everybody worked hard. You could tell everybody was involved in it and everybody did what they needed to do to perform this. And nobody upstaged anybody. And I think that's the key thing. It wasn't you could tell it was an ensemble piece where even the lead characters didn't upstage the rest of the characters around them. It felt put together and really, specific.
Have you ever seen a show where somebody has upstaged the ensemble?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a few where
known actors.
Yeah, I've seen it where you can tell that the rest of the cast is less relevant to them, and I think it just detracts so much from a performance, and it's almost like they know they're the highest paid on the stage. They know that that's the person that's gonna stand out in front of everybody else, and almost get applause for walking on stage. And I think for me, there's nothing worse because all those other actors are still all turning up and actually probably doing all performances of the run rather than just doing the ones that have got the most audience in the room. And I think that, and also standing in for that person. I mean, and that's frustrating when you do see it. So when you see something like this and everybody's fully involved, you can tell that everybody's enjoying it as well.
Moving on to our next segment, as we say,
What the Tech is this?
Tech-wise, it was just as good as last time because it's quite subtle and the projections are done well. The projections add to the production rather than they don't feel in the way. They were just depicting the different locations that were happening on stage, and that was blended nicely with the tabs that came in with the doors and the barn doors and things like that. That just had enough, and the lighting was quite subtle. Really, it was all very sepia. It was all very poignant for the whole for the production, and they got the gunshots right. What more can I say? It does matter.
Yeah, what I would say about the ending. I mean, this isn't necessarily a technical thing, but I suppose how they structured the play at the very end, with the whole car and the lights, and when they had the information up about the references about who got shot when and where and all the bits at the end. It ended on a quiet note because we'd already had the gunshots at the beginning, and I was waiting for the gunshots just to end it. Yeah, and it didn't come. There was nothing there.
Even if it had been one single gunshot with the lights going off, full blackout, it could have had that. Would have just give the final whack to the end of the production.
I feel that's what you needed. I would probably had a series of gunshots and the lights fade.
Well, at the end of the day, it was machine gun fire that killed them, wasn't it? As in, it was the car.
It wasn't a machine gun. No, it was a load of officers with a load of
officers. So, But the car didn't come out pretty afterwards, did it? It was covered in bullet holes. So, like you say, it should have been more than one shot, maybe, and that would have just because the end of the production should should almost shock you a little bit for you to remember.
We know what's coming, and even though they've already set it up with the gunshots at the beginning, it needed a dramatic just end, just so we knew.
Yeah, this is it.
Because I was waiting for it. I was thinking,
exactly.
Is there something else afterwards?
Yeah, no, I get that.
And I think I needed like a full stop, and that's what the bullet points would have been. The full stop.
Yeah,
for me.
And now it's time for our Rewind Rewatch.
Well, I certainly wouldn't watch the sex scene again. I wouldn't rewind and watch that one.
No.
Ever.
For me, it's the first Raise a Little Hell because, I just like it when somebody goes mad on stage and they look convincing.
Okay.
When you see the downfall.
I think I'd actually like to see the Salon song again.
Yeah.
I quite like that because that was the first song that got me into it. I think I'd like to go back and see that one again.
Moving on to our final segment, as we say,
Call this a show?
For me, it's a great performance and a great production, and it's something you can easily watch more than once. And you would notice little things once you've seen it before that you haven't seen in the first time. And just a superb cast.
I think it just tells the story of Bonnie and Clyde perfectly. It's a slow build-up, but once you get into it and you get familiar with the characters on stage and what the players, you then start to become engrossed in the drama and the action. And I think it's just it then becomes a fast-paced sort of a joyous production.
Yeah, definitely.
It really does, and it's because it is obviously real life. It's a good little history play as well. In essence,
definitely.
It's good at teaching you the highlights of notorious
criminals.
Criminals, yes, Bonnie and Clyde. So I thought it was great. I mean, if you compare this to the Titanic musical, that was to tell that. I mean, what the heck was that about? You see,
that's meant to be a history piece, but what the hell was it about?
Yeah, I mean, at least with this, we had a story that wasn't
solid,
just like bullet.
Exactly.
Bullet points is probably the wrong thing to say. Post-it notes as to what went on.
Exactly.
But it was done in such a way that, thankfully, the real life events told a story anyway. But you saw that. I think with this writing, you followed more the romance behind it because it is a love story.
Well, the central core of the characters were there. I think that's the.
But it could have been done much worse. I mean, it could have just been a load of each scene could have been like a post-it note of what happened each time with no. We might have not been drawn to these characters to care, even though it's real life, but we do actually.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
They followed the narrative of it being a love story.
Exactly that.
And that was what drew us in. Whereas Titanic, we didn't know what the heck was going on there. There wasn't like a focal point on that one.
No.
Scores then please, Richard, for Bonnie and Clyde the Musical. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being a sensational musical that raises a little hell, and 1 being a brutal production worth the execution. What's it going to be?
I've said it before and I'll say it again. It's a 10 out of 10.
Ooh. I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. I'm only saying 9 because I needed that bullet point at the firing at the very end.
I don't know where that poem came from me. But, I must have a bit of Bonnie in me.
Ooh. So, what sound effect will you be choosing from the following? A complete train wreck? Tumbleweed, an audible shrug of the shoulders, a slow clap, a pleasant applause, or a standing ovation. What will it be? I'm going to give this a standing ovation.
And I'm going to give it a standing ovation too. So there we are. That's our discussion of Bonnie and Clyde. We hope you found it insightful.
If not, entertaining.
Stay tuned as we bring you more of our thoughts
and opinions
on many theatrical delights in future episodes. If you'd like to get in touch, email us at upstagedownsstagepod@gmail.com. You can always join in the chat to share with us your views of a production.
Also, make sure to follow, share, like and subscribe to all our channels so you get every episode the second it's released. And we hope you join us again for another instalment of
Upstage Downstage.
Ready? Go on.
Oh, are we starting now?
Yeah. 1, 2.
And a 3 and a 4 and a 5.
Wow.
Well, don't turn me down.
Don't let me down. Say it again.
A 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5.
Wow. Say it again.
Can you hear me now? You've turned down the microphone on me.
Are we ready?
Oh no, I've got your bloody toenail clipping.
How very dare you? 1, 2,
I'm surrounded
3.
by your toenail clippings.
I didn't realise that they're not toenails. Go steady.
I can't go.
Oh dear.
Scores on the doors then please, Richard, for Bonnie and Clyde The Musical. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being a sensational music... Oh, my phone's gone off. Scores then please, Richard, for Bonnie and Clyde The Musical. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being a sensational music...
On today's episode, we'll be discussing Bonnie and Clyde The Tour. Winner of Best New Musical, What's on Stage Award. No, I don't need to put that in there. No, I do actually, because it was Best New Musical of what? Winner of Best New Musical for the What's on Stage Awards 2023. This West End smash hit featuring music by
Just go back.
I know. Winner of the Best New Musical at... Oh God. Winner of Best New Musical at the What's on Stage Awards 2023. The West End smash hit... The West End... It's alright, get them out.
It's like you need an oxygen tank before you even speak. Do you want to do this lying down?
Yeah, do actually. Winner of Best New Musical and featuring music by Frank. It's because featuring Frank is that. Featuring music by Frank Wildhorn, lyrics by Don Black, and book by Ivan Mensch. No, a book. I'm just going to put book, not a book. After 2 hell-raising seasons at London.